Nobody was ready for this moment. Not the fans who grew up watching the Braxton sisters laugh, fight, and reunite on camera. Not the insiders who swore the family drama was finally cooling down. And definitely not the sisters themselves. Because when Tamar Braxton finally spoke, she didn't raise her voice. She dropped a truth so heavy it cracked the entire narrative in half. This wasn't a rant. This wasn't a messy social media spiral. This was calm, controlled, and devastatingly precise. In just a few sentences, Tamar exposed years of unspoken tension, emotional fractures, and behind-the-scenes dynamics that fans were never meant to see. The internet didn't just react, it detonated. Old clips resurfaced. Group chats exploded. Comment sections turned into war zones as viewers began rewatching everything they thought they understood about the Braxton family. Because suddenly, moments that once looked like harmless sisterly bickering felt darker. Awkward silences felt intentional. Jokes felt loaded. Smiles felt rehearsed. And the biggest shock of all, Tamar didn't frame herself as the villain or the victim. She framed herself as someone who had finally reached her limit. Within minutes, celebrities began posting cryptic reactions. Fans split into camps. Some praised her honesty. Others accused her of rewriting history. And through it all, one question kept echoing louder by the second. If Tamar has been holding this in for years, what else hasn't been said? Because what she just revealed doesn't just challenge her relationship with her sisters. It forces everyone to question whether the family image we were shown was ever the full story at all. The fallout didn't begin with a headline. It began with a pause. A long one. The kind that makes people lean closer instead of scrolling away. Tamar didn't rush her words. She didn't lash out. She didn't name names. And that restraint made what she said hit harder than any accusation ever could. She talked about patterns. About feeling unheard in rooms where she was supposed to feel safest. About moments when her emotions were labeled too much, while everyone else's discomfort was treated as reasonable. Fans immediately noticed how careful she was with her language, not explosive, not reckless, but emotionally precise. And that precision made people uneasy. Because it suggested this wasn't a reaction. It was a conclusion. As the clip spread, viewers began stitching together old footage like investigators revisiting a cold case. Scenes from the show that once played as playful banter suddenly felt tense. Tamar speaks up only to be talked over. Tamar expressed hurt only to be told she was being dramatic. Tamar walked away from arguments while others stayed seated, calm, composed, untouched. The internet started asking a dangerous question. What if this wasn't conflict, but a pattern of imbalance? Behind the scenes, alleged insiders began whispering. Nothing concrete. Nothing provable. Just consistent themes. Tamar feels isolated even when surrounded by family. Tamar is expected to take it on the chin, for the sake of unity. Tamar was praised publicly, but corrected privately. None of it is illegal. None of it scandalous on paper. But emotionally crushing. Then came the moment that changed the tone entirely. Tamar referenced a conversation, not filmed, not public, where she says she finally tried to explain how deeply certain dynamics affected her mental health. According to her, the response wasn't cruelty. It was a dismissal. That's just how we are, she recalled being told. And in that sentence, fans heard the breaking point. Because when pain is normalized, it stops being addressed. Social media erupted again. Some accused Tamar of reopening old wounds. Others said she was finally telling the truth everyone avoided. Fellow artists subtly weighed in with posts about boundaries, healing, and choosing peace over proximity. None mentioned her name. They didn't have to. And while Tamar never said she hated her sisters, the internet filled in the blanks, loudly, recklessly. She didn't correct them. She didn't feed them. She simply said she needed distance to survive. That distinction mattered, but only to those listening closely. As reactions poured in, one thing became impossible to ignore: no one denied her feelings. Not publicly. Not privately. And that silence, that careful, collective quiet, made the story feel far from over. The silence after Tamar's words was louder than any rebuttal could have been. No press statements. No emotional clapbacks. No carefully worded "family is everything" quotes posted to smooth it over. Just a vacuum. And in that vacuum, speculation grew teeth. Fans noticed something immediately: the timing. Tamar didn't speak during a promotional cycle. She didn't attach her truth to an album rollout or a ratings push. This wasn't strategy. That made it feel dangerous. Because when someone tells their story without an obvious motive, people start believing them. Old clips resurfaced again, but this time with sharper focus. Moments where Tamar laughed a little too hard after being dismissed. Scenes where she tried to explain herself only to be met with eye rolls or silence. One particular exchange went viral, a dinner table argument where Tamar said, "I don't feel safe expressing myself," and the conversation moved on without acknowledging it. At the time, it was edited as drama. Now it played like neglect. Then came the alleged off-camera accounts. A former production assistant hinted online that Tamar was often the first to arrive on set and the last to leave, emotionally drained before filming even began. Another anonymous post claimed Tamar would sometimes sit alone in her dressing room after group scenes, headphones on, eyes red, refusing to come back out unless absolutely necessary. None of these claims were verified. But they echoed the same emotional frequency as Tamar's own words. And that consistency is what unsettled people. What really shifted the narrative was Tamar addressing the idea of family loyalty. She didn't attack it. She questioned it. She asked why loyalty so often meant silence for one person and comfort for everyone else. Why speaking up was treated as betrayal instead of communication. That reframing hit a nerve, especially with viewers who recognized the dynamic in their own families. Meanwhile, subtle changes began happening online. Tamar stopped liking posts from certain relatives. Old photos quietly disappeared from her page. Fans noticed she stopped using "we" when talking about the family and started using "I." That linguistic shift didn't go unnoticed. Language tells the truth long before statements do. Then came a moment that felt almost accidental. During a live, Tamar was asked directly if she hated her sisters. She paused. Not for drama. For control. And then she said, "Hate is a strong word. But pain can live where love is supposed to." That line spread faster than any headline. Because it didn't accuse. It confessed. Other family members began posting vaguely, quotes about forgiveness, about miscommunication, about keeping things private. But none of them addressed Tamar directly. None said she was lying. None said she misunderstood. That omission became the story. Because when someone shares emotional harm, and no one disputes the experience, the implication hangs heavy. Fans split into camps. Some demanded reconciliation. Others defended distance as self-preservation. And Tamar. She went quiet again. No follow-ups. No clarifications. Just a final post that read, "Healing doesn't always look like unity." And with that, the question shifted from why she felt this way, to what finally made her say it out loud. Because something had clearly changed. And whatever it was, it hadn't finished surfacing yet. By the time the dust settled, one truth had become impossible to ignore. This wasn't about one argument, one episode, or one misunderstanding. This was about accumulation. Years of moments that never exploded on camera, but quietly stacked up behind the scenes until the weight became unbearable. Insiders close to the family began hinting that Tamar's breaking point wasn't sudden at all. It was delayed. According to one longtime associate, Tamar had been holding herself together for years out of obligation, not peace. Family meetings that ended without resolution. Apologies that never came. Promises of change that dissolved the moment the cameras stopped rolling. What the public saw as chaos, Tamar experienced as repetition. The most unsettling detail to surface wasn't something Tamar said. It was something she stopped doing. She stopped explaining herself. People close to her noticed she no longer tried to convince anyone she was misunderstood. That shift mattered. Because when someone stops defending their pain, it usually means they've accepted that the people who hurt them aren't listening. Fans also noticed Tamar's language evolving. She stopped using phrases like, "We're working on it," and "families fight." Instead, she started talking about boundaries, safety, and emotional honesty. Not buzzwords. Survival terms. During one quiet interview clip that didn't go viral until weeks later, Tamar said, "I love my sisters. But loving them doesn't mean I can keep breaking myself to stay connected." That sentence reframed everything. Behind the scenes, the family dynamic reportedly grew colder. Not louder. No screaming matches. No explosive confrontations. Just distance. Invitations unanswered. Group chats muted. Birthdays acknowledged privately, if at all. That kind of silence hurts differently. It's not dramatic enough to trend, but it's heavy enough to change relationships permanently. What complicated everything further was the public's demand for reconciliation. Fans begged Tamar to fix it, to make peace, to be the bigger person. But Tamar's supporters pushed back hard, pointing out that growth doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it means choosing yourself when no one else ever did. Then came the moment that felt like quiet closure. Tamar posted a photo of herself alone, no caption, no explanation. Just calm. No sadness. No anger. Peace. And in the comments, instead of chaos, there was understanding. People sharing their own stories. Sisters who loved each other but couldn't coexist. Families that looked perfect on the outside and fractured in private. The narrative shifted again. This wasn't about hating her sisters. It was about refusing to keep absorbing pain in the name of family branding. Tamar didn't expose secrets. She didn't drag names. She told her truth without spectacle. And that restraint made it louder than any rant ever could. The hardest part for viewers to accept was that there might not be a neat ending. No reunion special. No tearful group hug. No perfectly edited resolution. Just distance, growth, and an adult decision to stop bleeding in places that refuse to heal you. And that's what made Tamar's revelation land so deeply. Not because it was shocking, but because it was familiar. Because so many people recognized themselves in her choice. Loving people from afar. Choosing peace over proximity. And finally, after years of being labeled the problem, realizing that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step away and let the silence speak for you. Before you scroll away, pause for just a second, because stories like this don't end when the video ends. They live in the reactions, the conversations, and the uncomfortable truths people are finally brave enough to admit out loud. What Tamar shared wasn't just celebrity drama. It was a mirror. A reminder that family doesn't automatically mean safety, that love doesn't cancel out pain, and that choosing yourself can feel like betrayal to people who benefited from your silence. And that's exactly why this moment matters. If this story made you uncomfortable, emotional, or reflective, that means it hit something real. Don't let it disappear into the algorithm. Hit like so this conversation doesn't get buried. Every like tells the platform this topic matters more than gossip. It tells it that emotional truth deserves space. Drop a comment and say what you really think. Do you believe distance can be healthy? Have you ever had to step back from family to protect your peace? Your words don't just sit there. They shape the next discussion, the next video, the next angle we explore. And most importantly, subscribe. Not because you want drama, but because stories like this evolve. There are always more layers, more context, more voices that haven't spoken yet. When the next piece drops, when someone finally responds, when silence breaks, you'll want to be here for it. Turn on notifications so you don't miss it. Because the truth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives quietly, and only the people paying attention catch it.